Welcome back to another episode of Norse Studies with Zakk. We're going over the culture of the Teutons. If you haven't watched any of my episodes, they're in 10-minute intervals. We're just reading this together. Feel free to start at any episode that you've missed. Go back through my page. You can catch up with us. It's pretty easy. We're just going to go through this book together, kind of discern what Wilhelm Grönbeck is trying to say about Norse culture. Once more, these two women appear in the history of pharaoh nobles. Alright, so here we go. It happens that a son of Sigmunds Cousin... Alright, so now we're in Sigmund's family, right? So this is his cousin's son. Has been slain while staying in the house of Sigurd Thorlexson, which is a relative. We don't know how. Sigurd Thorlexson, a kinsman of Thron's. Sigurd had at once struck down the slayer, and these three being the only ones present at the fateful moment, some shadow of suspicion attaches to the host. The mere possibility that one of Sigmund's kinsmen lies slain and unavenged is enough to keep Thurid and Thora in a state of unrest day and night. Poor life, who will not or cannot take any steps in the matter, hears nothing but scornful words about the house. When then Sigurd Thorlexson, in his blindness, asks on behalf of his brother for Thurid's hand. So he is asking, this guy is wanting to marry Thurid. And he is asking life. Oh wait, no, he's not asking life. See? See why this is so complex? It gets crazy here. There's a lot of moving parts here, right? Her daughter wisely counsels her as follows. If I should advise, this must not be refused, for if you are minded to vengeance, there could be no surer bait. And she adds, no need for me to set words in my mother's mouth. The plan proceeds. Sigurd is invited to have speech with Thurid. So Sigurd is invited to talk with Thurid. She meets him outside the homestead and leads him to a seat on a tree trunk. He makes as if to sit facing the house, but she seats herself resolutely the other way, with her back to the house and her face towards the chapel. Sigurd asks if life is at home. No, he is not. If Thurid's sons are at home, life is at home. No, he is not. If Thurid's sons are at home, yes, they are at home. And in a little while, both they and life appear, and Sigurd goes off mortally wounded. So life.
No. Let's go back.
So Thurid has other sons. sons. Sigurd comes to Thurid's house and essentially he says, hey, is life here? No, life's not there. Are your sons home? No, sons aren't home. But then they come back and they end up killing Sigurd. These two were Thurid, the great widow, and Thora, whom all held to be the noblest of women. Their greatness lay not so much in the fact of their loving truly and faithfully, as in their understanding of what that love demanded, and their fulfilling its demands in spite of all. The question asked us here is, not what we think of these two, but if we are able to accept the appreciative judgment of their love as it stands, without reserve. On closer scrutiny, Eagle's love, see? Yeah, where are we? On closer scrutiny of Eagle's love and sorrow, we find too some characteristic features that are likely to trouble our serene faith in a common humanity. It is related that having made provision for his son in the hereafter by setting him in a burial mound that might content him, the old champion himself was minded to die, but his quick-witted daughter, Thorgerd, artfully brought back his interest in life by reminding him that nobody else would be able to honor the youth with a laudatory poem, and thus enticing him to make a lay of his loss. Alright, so this is where things are getting complicated again. Let's get rid of all that nonsense. Alright. So now we're back to Eagle, which is a totally separate story from what we just read. This is why the way Wilhelm writes is so confusing. So now he's talking about making his son a burial mound. We know his son is dead, right? So we know son is dead. We don't know his name. Quick-witted daughter. So essentially he's saying that Eagle's son is dead, and Eagle wants to die. He wants to kill himself or just die. But he's also got a daughter. Thorgerd. Brought back his interest in life by reminding him that nobody else would be able to honor the youth with a laudatory poem, and thus enticing him to make a lay of his loss. And fortunately for us, this poem, in which Eagle laid down the burden of his sorrow, has been preserved. There is a depth of meaning in the fact that the most beautiful poem remaining to us from ancient times is a poem of kinship and love of kin, and that it should be Eagle himself, the oldest fashioned of all the saga heroes who made it. Unfortunately, our understanding and enjoyment of this confession are hampered in a very high degree by the difficulties of its form. Eagle was not only a man of considerable character, he was also what we should call a poet, whose soul found direct expression in verse. The kennings, or metaphors, which were part and parcel of the ancient poetry, fell from Eagle's lips as images revealing the individual moods and passions of the poet. But so strange to our ears are the poetical figures of the ancient skalds, that it needs a great deal of work on our part before we can approach him from such a position that his picture phrases appear with life and significance. Given the patience, however, to acquire familiarity with the artificial metaphors of the skald, enough to realize what it is that forces itself through the poet's mind in his cumbersome form, we can feel, Page 15. The sorrow of his bereaved father dropping heavily, sullenly, from verse to verse. He complains that sorrow binds his tongue.
I'm going to stop right there. If you guys want to get something else out of these videos, if you want them to be longer, if you want them to be shorter, please comment below. Rate, comment, subscribe. It helps me out. Otherwise, we'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.